Hi, I'm UK Vapor, and in this video I'll show you how I mix my eLiquid. As you can see, I use a measuring tube for measuring out all the different ingredients. Here I'm just putting the VG in. It's much easier mixing with these tubes because you can start off with your base liquid and then just add on to that the number of milliliters for each component as you go. So if you've got 50 and you need to add 5, you just top it up to 55, etc. So I've added my VG and now I'm just going to add in some distilled water just to thin it out a little bit. I find it's a bit thick on the mixture that I use. I'm going to use a syringe for this just to demonstrate the use of syringes. I use both PG and VG in the mix. The VG is short for vegetable glycerin, and this is the one that produces the most of the smoke that you get from the vaping experience. It is quite thick liquid, so this is why we put in the distilled water to help thin it out a bit. It gives the atomizers a little bit easier time. The VG will also add a little bit of a sweetness to the taste of the added flavour. And you'll find VG in a lot of day-to-day things, everything from toothpaste, soap, pet food, and even in some baked goods, so it's relatively safe to ingest. The other main component of the juices is the PG, the propylene glycol. This tends to be quite high on the percentage in most shop bought liquids, but can produce a soreness in the throat, dry throat, dry mouth, due to its natural tendency to absorb moisture. So it'll absorb the moisture in your mouth, which will give you the dryness. It's also widely found in a lot of normal stuff you buy off the shelf, and shampoos, baby wipes, pet food, asthma inhalers. So this is also relatively safe. But due to the dryness, you can see here I'm putting in a bit of saline. The salt in the saline helps to keep the moisture in the mouth and helps to combat the dryness some people find. It's also known that some people can have a mild allergic reaction to PG or VG. So if you do find that you're getting a lot of irritation and you're not getting the dryness, then try varying the amounts of each you're using in your liquids in order to try and work out which one you're more affected by. So far I've added the VG, some distilled water and some saline, so I'm now going to add in the PG. The measuring tube I'm using is just a standard plastic measuring tube, but the markings on it can be quite difficult to see. So what I've actually done there is I've gone over them with a black marker pen and then just rub my finger over so it's easier to see where the lines are on the actual outside of the cylinder. I've also got quite a bright light to give me the contrast so as I can actually see the liquid within inside the cylinder, because the cylinder being white and the liquid being clear can be quite difficult to see where the liquid is at times. So that there is now the main base. The only thing I need to add to that is the nicotine juice and the flavourings, so that you can actually make this up in bulk, and then it makes it simpler just to mix in little bits of flavour and nicotine juice as you go if you're making smaller amounts. But as I do 100 ml at a time, I just make it all in one go. The next component I add is the nicotine juice. I tend to buy it as strong as we can get in the UK. We're limited to 75 milligrams, which is 7.5% nicotine juice. Any stronger than that and you need a poisons license in order to be able to handle it. So this is the strongest we can get here in the UK. The nicotine will be in a base of either PG, VG, or you can get it in a mix from some suppliers. So you choose the base which you're going to use the most of, and then you can cut down on the pure PG or VG you need to add on top of that. The main thing to be careful of here is that you don't knock the tube over when you get to this sort of level, because it can get kind of not top heavy, but it can get slightly more unstable. I have knocked it over in the past, at which point you waste quite a lot of juice and it does make quite a bit of mess. And also with the nicotine juice, always keep some towels handy and keep it clean. Wash your hands afterwards because you don't really want to leave it on your skin for too long. At these levels, it's relatively safe. If you do get in on your hands, though, wash it off fairly quickly. Some people can find it will irritate your hands, and it is a poison at the end of the day. Nicotine is quite a strong poison, so you don't want to have it on your hands for too long. So finally, we've got the flavourings to put in. I use Flavour Art flavourings here, so you only need a very small amount. This particular juice I'm making here is a mint mocha, so it's got coffee, chocolate, creme fraiche, and menthol to give it the minty flavour. And as you can see, the big bottle in front is the coffee, because that's the biggest component. I think there's 5 millilitres of coffee that goes into this mix. So in 100 ml, I think it's 5 ml of coffee and 2 ml of the creme fraiche, the chocolate, and the menthol. I find the menthol gives it a bit of an extra throat hit. And it also freshens it up a little bit. I have used other things in here in the past, sweeteners and the such, but generally now I don't put anything else in other than the flavourings. I always keep a bottle of water handy just to immediately rinse out any syringes. I find the longer you leave the liquids in them, the more you end up having to clean them. And if you do it immediately, you can just do them a quick wash. But normally I wouldn't bother using syringes. I'd just measure it straight into the graduated cup, because you're only talking 2 milliliters, so you can measure it quite accurately. The other problem, of course, is using syringes. You either need to have a needle on the syringe, or luckily, as I've got here, I've got quite a thin syringe with a big top, so I can fit the whole syringe in. So it's a lot easier if you can get away without having to use all the syringes. Finally, I'll just speed it up a bit and pour the last few bits in. Now it's the fun part. Is as you can see, it's all the mixtures, all the flavours are sitting on the top of the liquids at the moment. So you just need to give it a good shake to mix it up. I tend to do this by putting some cling film over the top, just to keep it off my hands, and then just giving it a good mix around in the tube. Once you've given it a good shake up, just have a good look at it under the light and make sure that it's all mixed, and you can see that there's an even colour. You'll tell if it's not mixed because there will be a graduated colour throughout the liquid. At this point I will decant it into some smaller bottles just for ease of use. You could put it into a large bottle if you wish, but I generally use these smaller glass bottles. I generally use glass bottles because I will then put this into a ultrasonic cleaner. The ultrasonic cleaner can be used to increase the steep times. The steep time is the general standing time, and by leaving it standing, the molecules will mix over time slowly. If you use an ultrasonic cleaner, it speeds up the process a bit, so rather than having to put it in a dark room in a dark cupboard somewhere for a couple of weeks, you can generally use it a lot sooner. So finally, at the very last stage, we put it into the ultrasonic cleaner and let it steep for a couple of hours, and then it's ready to vape.